we can't ask people to perform at their best, to share their best ideas, if we haven't created an environment in which they feel that it's psychologically safe to do so.
You're listening to the Unsure Entrepreneur Podcast with Roger Pierce. Whether you're scribbling business ideas on a napkin or wrestling with the should I, shouldn't I question, get ready to explore the realities, the risks, and the rewards of entrepreneurship as we share the stories, scars, and successes of small business owners.
Hey, aspiring entrepreneurs, welcome back to the Unsure Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Roger Pierce. My guest today believes that true leaders know they're both part of the problem and part of the solution. He's passionate about helping leaders create environments where people feel safe and encouraged to speak up. Simon Sinek is the author of Speak Up Culture, a keynote speaker, and a leadership coach. Early in his career, he was the fourth person to join Simon Sinek's team, the well-known author, where he co-hosted the Start With Why podcast and led leadership development programs for organizations around the world. Today, through his firm Shed Inspires, I love that name, found at shedinspires.com, he helps leaders put people and purpose first, something we can all learn about. So in this episode, we're going to talk about what entrepreneurs need to know about leadership before they hire their first employee, or maybe just as they're hiring their first team members, how to build workplace culture from day one, and lessons from his new book, Speak Up Culture. Stephen, welcome.
Thank you so much, Roger. It's a joy to be with you and your listeners.
It's good to have you here. And we're going to get into all kinds of good stuff here and talk about your book. So tell me a bit of the backstory. How did you get into leadership coaching and training in the first place?
So yeah, and you make me think of the E-myth from Gerber, right? With that, I haven't read the book, but I know the pyramid. So often entrepreneurs are like, I like fixing cars. That's a hobby. I'll open a auto mechanic shop. But there's a difference between being good at the hobby versus operating a business versus being a visionary for where the business ought to go. And when you're an entrepreneur, I think you need to know where you sit on that and where you have business playing in any of those respective areas and where you need help, because none of us can do it all. My journey, I studied business at Ivy down the road in London, Ontario, and sort of stumbled into business. I followed a great lecturer from a second year biz class, and he said, go check out Ivy. And I did. And that lecturer, guy by the name of Anuj Chandarana, who works at Google, is still a friend to this day. And I stumbled into business work. I did a short stint at Knightsbridge, which was a leadership solutions consultancy, which I loved. Started in corporate. My first day on my first job ever, 1,000 people were let go post-merger. So I was, the young kid walking in as many more were walking out. And that was really a front row seat organizational culture and organizational behavior and leadership behavior. Not even 101. It was at least a 200 or 3-level series course. It was really interesting to see. And I became fascinated with how do leaders behave, especially when under stress, when in crisis, when it matters most, and how do the choices, the behaviors, the communications of leaders either make things better or worse for people and their results. Stumbled across Simon Sinek's work, which I loved, and then started my company kind of by accident. I was working for Simon and his team for many years and loved working on that team and thought I'd be on that team forever. Was always sort of intrapreneurial, even if not outwardly an entrepreneur yet. And I was often asked, because I would go and speak and give talks on Simon's work with Start With Why and the Infinite Game. And I would often be asked, Roger, when are you going to write a book of your own? And my response was always, well, if and when I ever come across something worth writing about, because we've all read books for the sole purpose of having something to sound the back of the room or be invited into a room. I never wanted to write one of those. And so I came across psychological safety, and I came across this phenomena of a speak up culture. And so devoted myself to that work, and sort of became an accidental intrapreneur turned entrepreneur.
That's quite the story. And I think, if I know correctly, you were like the fourth hire on Simon's team. So you were there early stage.
Yeah, which was great to have a front row seat to how to build and scale an organization. Yeah, I got to learn from that experience for sure as well, which has helped hugely in my own building my own company and practice.
It's on my recommended reading list for new entrepreneurs. Start With Why. And now your new book, Startup Culture. We'll get to that in a minute. The reading list keeps getting longer and longer, and books are such an important part of the journey for entrepreneurs. It's a chance to really dig in and learn something new.
Yeah.
So, you often say true leaders know they are both part of the problem and part of the solution. What does that mean for new entrepreneurs?
I think it can mean anything. It's something that's just a human fact. And I think those among us who are effective leaders and effective entrepreneurs have the self awareness and humility. We have strengths, we have genius. There are things in our zone of control and influence that we are masters and wonderful at. And there are areas where we are limited, and there are areas where we are weaker, or we have areas that are blind spots, especially for entrepreneurs who are trying to build something, to build great awareness of what are my strengths, what am I going to be great at, and what am I going to get in my own way with, and how am I going to trip others up as well, even if it's inadvertent, and to religiously build relationship with that as like there's a lifestyle business where you can be an entrepreneur, but it's really only you and maybe a couple vendors here and there or contractors. But if you're growing something that really, like, its scale and its growth depends upon a team and more people and hiring more, you really got to be clear on where are you going to create momentum and where are you going to create dissonance, and as much as you can hire for, solve for where you're going to get in your own way, in the way of others, of which we all have these things.
You raise a good point. Play to your strengths, delegate your weaknesses, learn, learn, learn. That's a good workaround too. I'm terrible at accounting and numbers. I'll openly admit that. So I delegate the heck out of that to the accountant. What are you good at? What are you not so good at? What do you delegate?
I definitely delegate numbers. So yes, I have a great accounting firm, and I have someone on my team part-time who does financial management for me as well, budgets and what can we afford to do and targets and all these fun things. I'm also not great at admin and organization. I can be detail oriented when it comes to words and design and some really nitpicky stuff. And then I can be totally not detail oriented when it comes to admin, contracts, invoices, things of that nature. So I love building relationships. I love speaking and facilitating and training and coaching. I don't love the organizational execution part behind it. So that's where I get help and form accountability on certain tasks that only I can do as it relates to content.
And thank you for sharing that so openly. It's important that new entrepreneurs understand this. You don't have to be good at everything. You're not going to be good at everything. Like Michael Gerber says, figure out whether you're the entrepreneur, the manager, or the technician, and partner up, hire, delegate, take training. You are not going to be good everything as an entrepreneur. And people get nervous about this. They go, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have to do a lot of selling." Okay, that's important for a new entrepreneur, but there are workarounds. You can partner with a person who's maybe strong in sales. You can develop marketing systems or bring in the leads. You shouldn't sweat it, right? You're not in this alone, are you, Stephen?
No, no. And I also think this is a huge piece of where a speak up culture comes in, which is when you are forming a team to get really clear on, hey, team, this is what I know that I believe that I'm good at, or at least have a track record of saying I'm good at, or I've done these assessments and I'm good at these pieces, and I'm really not great at these pieces. And so, because I care greatly about this business, because I'm an owner, because of all these things, I might try to spend time in areas where I have no business spending time in, and I'll slip into micromanagement or I'll slip into over controlling. And this is where a speak up culture really plays benefit when you design an accountability with your team. I need help, or I invite you to share with me when I'm outside of my lane. And then when people point out, hey, stop trying to do accounting, you're not an accountant, that's the time to take a deep breath and say you're right and thank you, and go after what you're trying to go after, but stick in your lane, because we all have lanes.
Well, that's a natural segue. I want you to dig a little deeper for me and explain what is speak up culture in simple terms and why is it so important for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so a speak up culture is an environment in which it both feels psychologically safe and that it's worth it to use our voice, to share what we see, feel, know, to share our ideas, whether they're our best ideas or half baked ideas, to provide feedback to one another. Feedback is a source of growth, of improvement, to share concerns, the proverbial smoke before it becomes fire, disagreements and debates. I think the biggest myth of psychological safety in a speak up culture is that everyone gets along and agrees about all the things. Absolutely not. The true test of a healthy, thriving speak up culture is, do we have meaningful, productive, generative disagreements and debates where we can disagree, align, and then commit? And finally, inside of a speak up culture, we can raise our hand and admit mistakes, knowing that on the other side is improvement and not punishment. So that's what a speak up culture is: safe and worth it.
What do you think of the expression speak truth to power? Is that part of it for entrepreneurs and their teams?
It certainly can be. And I think inside of a team or an organization where there is psychological safety and a speak up culture, speaking truth to power doesn't need to be such a big deal. If it's such a big deal and we spend so much energy and effort and coaching and time and rehearsal, you might not have as healthy of a speak up culture as possible. When you do have a healthy speak up culture, speaking truth to power isn't this overwhelming, huge, big idea. It's just what we do here. Of course, I'm going to challenge someone on my team or the leader or the entrepreneur or whatever it might be if I have a contrarian point of view. I'll still do it with respect and tact and empathy and curiosity. But why wouldn't I if I believe it's going to make things better? And it's the responsibility of entrepreneurs, of the leaders, to both encourage folks to use their voice and then reward them when they do. If you punish people or ignore them for speaking up, especially if it's the type of things that you do want to hear, good luck. And if someone speaks up with something that is inconvenient to hear, though likely true, you should pay attention. As my friend Tim McClure says, that the biggest concern for any organization is when the most passionate people become silent. And I've been there. I've been on a team where I've been the most passionate and I've become silent because I've been burned for sharing hard truths.
Burned for sharing hard truths, punished for speaking up.
Yep. And then you learn very quickly it's better to just zip it, keep your head down, do your job, and probably get the heck out.
I got to ask you what the risks are when leaders fail to create this culture. But I read something online before we talk about that. Employees in speak up cultures are 92% more likely to want to stay with the company and contribute to their full potential.
Yep. The correlation between a speak up culture and a culture of mattering. And my friend Zach Mercurio has some great work on mattering, that when we speak up and our opinion is valued and we're speaking up in the right lane and the right context, absolutely, we want to give of our discretionary effort. We feel as though we matter and that our work, our words matter. That's good for business.
That is good for business. What are some other risks if an entrepreneur doesn't heed this advice?
Yeah, I mean, you will get people who check out, or you will get people who will do the bare minimum. They'll do their job and no more. I mean, the thesis of the book is a 2x2 matrix, where you want it to be safe and you want it to be worth it, right? Now there's three other quadrants where it's safe, but it's not worth it. This is providing feedback to a dear friend who implements none of it repeatedly. It still feels safe, but it feels not worth it. Apathy or futility sets in. There are circumstances where it isn't safe, but it is worth it. This is whistleblowing. This is Ed Pearson at Boeing, who was on the front line seeing that the planes weren't being built safely and smartly and well, let alone the engineering. But when it's neither safe nor worth it, right? I've been in an environment where someone was telling me, speak up, you're the speak up guy. And I'm like, it's not safe and it's not worth it. Like, why would I put myself in more psychological danger and expose myself to greater futility and apathy, right? It's an unhappy marriage when it's psychologically dangerous and not worth it. That's what you get when folks go, they put up their hands. It's not going to make a difference. I'll just put in my work, put in my hours, and wait until something better comes along. That's the risk.
You reminded me of one of my favorite movies, The Insider, with Russell Crowe, Al Pacino. Russell Crowe was blowing the whistle on the tobacco industry, and the world comes crashing down on him, but he sticks to his mission despite losing his job and his family and all these pressures. It's quite the drama. I think it was back in the 90s.
Yeah, rings a bell.
And this is a good segue. You touched a little bit about what the book has got to offer. Can you give us a bit of a preview about what's inside the book and how it will help entrepreneurs?
This is a book all about culture and psychological safety. It's also a book about leadership. What does it mean to be a leader and behave as a leader? And leadership is not about title, leadership is about behavior. In the book, I define what a speak up culture is and share some interesting case studies and stories. I talk about how it needs to be safe and worth it, talk about the encourage and reward cycle. But I also set a vision for how we ought to identify, select, hire, and promote leaders based on their behavior and not anything else. I talk about feedback, what good feedback looks like. I make a great comparison to culture as a pickle jar that you can put a perfectly good cucumber in some bad brine, you get a bad pickle, but you can't blame the cucumber. You have to examine the brine that it's in. I also spent some time working with Navy SEALs, and in particular, one former SEAL, a retired commander, Rich Davini. And he's actually shown me that there's a great correlation between entrepreneurship and becoming a Navy SEAL. And there's one attribute that all Navy SEALs and all entrepreneurs have, and it's this word called cunning. Cunning is the ability to look at a scenario, look at a situation, a context, and go, all right, what are the rules? Are they real or are they perceived? And what's the cost of breaking that rule? And am I willing to suffer that potential consequence? And I think all entrepreneurs and SEALs work that way because I often think, especially when you're an innovative entrepreneur and you're trying to chart into new territory, you have to look at, all right, what are the preconceived notions and are they actually true or can I challenge it? Look at Uber that defines itself as a communications and technology company, not a transportation or delivery company, but it's undoubtedly disrupted that industry. Again, I think there's a difference between I just want to run my coaching practice business. That's a form of entrepreneurship, but you're not creating a startup scale up scale, so there's different contexts. I think we use the word entrepreneurship, but what does it mean? Is it just working for yourself or is it building a company that can scale?
You raise a very good distinction. Very good distinction. One I am writing about and a book I'm plugging away at. There is a difference between, tech startup that someone wants to scale, build the big company,
Yeah.
lots of rounds of investment, and a
Yep.
small business owner who just wants to maybe start a local carpet cleaning business or a plumber. They're not looking to scale. They just want to make a decent living, have freedom, make some profit, have a good
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah. There's a very good friend of mine who just went through an exit and he prompted me with a question that I think is brilliant for listeners out there who are grappling with what's this definition of entrepreneurship and which version of it do I wish to practice. So he said to me, tomorrow, there could be a 100% chance that there will be $1 million in your bank account. That's option A, scenario A. Scenario B is there's a 10% chance you'll have $10 million in some time. And option C is there's a 1% chance you'll have 100 million. What do you take? And I went, I go with A. And he goes, perfect. You're running the type of business that you should be running. I'm running a lifestyle business. Sure, I'm looking to scale a little bit with an online course here and a partnership here, but I'm looking to do the work of speaking, or facilitating, training, coaching. I'm not looking to retire at 45. I intend to keep doing this work for as long as I'm physically and mentally able to do so. And I'm very happy to have some passive income, but that's my approach and that's what I'm comfortable with. So I think it's a good sort of risk appetite question because if you choose anything other than C, you're probably not cut out to enter into the sort of tech startup, let's gamble and win big because the odds aren't in your favor. So I think it's a good exercise, mental exercise to go through those sets of questions.
It's so true. Self-assessment is key. And there are lots of ways to do that online. There's some quizzes and things. I've got some on unsureentrepreneur.com, but it's also asking other people, what do you think I'm good at? Helping to define those strengths and weaknesses you touched upon earlier. But entrepreneurship doesn't have to be, like you said, this big. You don't have to be Bill Gates or Zuckerberg. You can also just be quite happy with a small business. I remember my father-in-law. He had a nice little business, nice little graphic design agency up in Peterborough, my hometown. Shout out to
Nice.
Larry Chestnut. And he loved it. He worked hard. He had a small team, nice little building, and he went golfing every afternoon with his buddies, right? That was his reason for being. was to get
Yep.
out there and play some golf in the afternoons.
That
So we
is a
designed
that
the
is a
business.
lifestyle business. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a chance to design the business the way you want it. And I'm a firm believer that your business should serve you and not the other way around.
Yep. Preach. Absolutely.
I want to just touch upon a little bit about psychological safety in performance, because that's a very nuanced topic. I mean, what do you mean by that? How do I make that happen for my small team?
Yes. So psychological safety, a big body of work, and Amy Edmondson has done some brilliant work in that area. The way she defines team psychological safety, it's an environment in which it feels safe to take interpersonal risk. This could be trying a new thing. This could be taking a risk. This could be innovating. This could be taking a different approach. This could be sharing feedback. This could be going to your boss and saying, I think the way that we're doing things isn't as smart as if we did it this way, right? And so psychological safety is a key, one of the key pieces of a speak up culture. I highlight that, yes, it's psychological safety as well as a perception of impact, that the choice to speak up, to share my opinion, and to take this risk is worth it, that I make up a story that there will be a positive outcome, a positive change, or that I'll feel as though I matter, not diminished, right? So it's those two pieces that I think when it's psychologically safe and when we feel that the risk to speak up and use our voice, share our opinion, be vulnerable, that it will lead to a positive outcome, then we're more likely to have better results as well. We can't ask people to perform at their best, to share their best ideas, if we haven't created an environment in which they feel that it's psychologically safe to do so.
I get it. I get it. So can you give me an example of how I can do that on a tactical level? Like, do I give them a reward? Do I have a roundtable? Do I follow up?
It's all of those things and more. So I think it is asking open ended questions and remaining silent. It's, hey, team, this is the opportunity or this is the issue. I need everyone's ideas. I have some preconceived notions, but I'm going to suspend sharing my ideas because as soon as the leader shares their ideas, guess what happens? Sounds good, boss. Let's do that. Right. But you miss out on everyone's ideas. So you say, this is the issue as I see it. Does anyone see the issue differently than me? Zip it, right? Build some relationship to the issue. Okay, cool. Was it Einstein who said if I have 60 minutes to solve a problem, I spend the first 55 on identifying the problem, right? Like, let's get on the same page of what's the issue, what are we going after here, or what's the opportunity, and then zip it. The number of times I've heard very senior leaders go, I need everyone's best ideas. Here's what I think we should do. No, 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 no. Like, I need everyone's best ideas, zip it, and allow yourself to be surprised. And as you do that, people will feel encouraged and rewarded more on the intrinsic side. Thank you. That must have taken courage. We didn't implement your idea, but here's why. I'm not yet seeing what you're sharing. Can you share more? Where did you come to that conclusion? These are all forms of intrinsic rewards that makes it safe and worth it to keep speaking up.
Over time, if I'm raising my hand and offering all these great ideas and speaking up, what if none of them gel? What if none of them are action? Do I start to get resentful?
I mean, potentially, but here's the thing. If you're speaking up, it's not about you speak up and everything you say is implemented or everything that you put forth is right. I mean, listen, if someone's speaking up and it continues to be like, what? Like, are we working for the same like what? Like, where are you getting that from? And if it's just wacko out of left field and doesn't gel with the reality that everyone else is seeing, I think that's a different conversation. But there's definitely a scenario where you speak up and it doesn't go exactly your way, but you can still feel at the end of it that it was worth it to raise your opinion. And maybe because something else is going on that you didn't know, or maybe there are constraints or whatever it might be. Yeah, I mean, I don't think a speak up culture is about, oh, let's just implement what everyone says. No, that's chaos. If someone's repeatedly speaking up and nothing's happening, it may not be the right fit for them. But it's not about everything being implemented all the time. It's about making people feel that they matter.
Good to know. And these are some of the nuances and things you're going to help your clients with in your workshops, in your training. Before we get to my final question, can you tell us what that looks like? What your services, how your service is offered and packaged up, Stephen?
Yeah. So my practice is based upon answering the questions. What does it mean to be a leader? How do we build trust and what is trust and where does it come from? We know culture matters, but what is it? What are its building blocks, and how do we build thriving and healthy cultures? So that's what I really focus on in my work. And it's keynote speaking, fireside chats, workshops, team coaching, and some one-on-one coaching, and always working to build some tools as it relates to online courses and partnerships in that area, as well as working on a podcast right now called Shed Some Light to help folks build upon their leadership development practice at their pace and in their way.
We talked about that briefly. You are working on your own podcast. You've been on tons of podcasts, but you've got your own coming out. Is there a timeline for that, or is it a big secret?
The goal is to launch Q1 of 2026. So hopefully not too long after this airs. That's what we're working toward.
Start off the new year on the positive note.
Yes. New year, same you, lead better.
I love it. Okay, well, we're getting close to the wrap here, but I do want to ask, what advice do you give entrepreneurs stepping into leadership for the first time?
Leadership isn't easy. It's not about perfection, it's about progress, and that we never arrive, we're always arriving. I have a definition of leadership, and I think if you take this definition to heart and strive to practice it, I think you'll do more good than harm. And to me, the definition of leadership is the attempt to leave the people and world around you better than when you found them. And that doesn't mean that you have to have lifetime employment. Sometimes people grow apart. That's okay. But can you leave people better than when you found them? And I think that's with every micro interaction as well as a macro interaction. So it's the attempt, because you never get it perfect all the time. And do you leave people in the world around you better because they knew you or you led them?
And by maybe signing up for one of your workshops or reading your book, we can do that and leave people a little bit better. Stephen Shedletzky, thank you so much. You've shown us that leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to speak and contribute. For entrepreneurs, that starts on day one, as we talked about, and when you make your first hire and begin to set the tone for how your business will run. So, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Roger, for having me, and thanks for tuning in.
If listeners want to connect, where can they do that? And what is the best way to get a copy of your book, Speak Up Culture?
Yes, I believe for the time being, I'm the only Stephen Shedletzky in the entire human race. So all you handfuls of Shedletzkys there, please name your children wisely. But if you Google me, you will find me. I'm most active on LinkedIn for the time being. And you can find my book, Speak Up Culture, at some very fine and not so fine book retailers. Amazon is an easy one to find it. But you can also go to my website, shedinspires.com/book.
Perfect. Shedinspires.com. Fantastic. Okay. And to our listeners, thanks for spending time with me here on the Unsure Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, leave us a review. Share it with someone who's building a business. And remember, you don't have to leap, but you can lean. Bye for now.
That's it for this episode of the Unsure Entrepreneur Podcast. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss other candid conversations with small business owners. And be sure to check us out at unsureentrepreneur.com.